Today I want to talk about conditioned happiness, because I feel like everywhere I look I see that. Not true happiness, not true fulfillment, not the soul singing and dancing through life, but maybe the ego or the persona. When you see happy people, what do you see? If you would try to describe it and go on with they're happy because, or they're happy about, there's kind of a big difference somewhere, right? Being happy because is more of the conditional part. Because they have a house, because they have a career, because they have not because they are. Being happy about is more on the side of connections, health, opportunities. All is somewhat conditional, and that's because it's so hard to discern, because it depends on the one hand definition, on the second hand on the worldview. And just because some things are considered normal and people are used to it, it doesn't take away from their happiness, because their happiness because they're perfectly aligned with their social mask and persona and avatar. And even if they did everything right in their life, and they have everything they dreamed of, even a golden cage is still a cage. For me personally, that's still not normal and not fulfilling and not freeing and conditional. I'm not talking of conditions of social contracts, but the political ones. It's not that you have to work more to get more. It's that you have to work at all for someone else. And even if you buy a land, it's not really yours. You have to buy permits to build something. Others tell you how and with what materials and all of that stuff you can build your house, how it should look like, what dimensions it's allowed to have, and all of that. And then the taxes, right? The insurances, all of that crap, it's a must buy. No. You're constantly trapped by something. In most of the world. Every piece of land on this planet belongs to someone or some government or some, you can't just live outside of it, nowhere. You might get a boat and go to neutral waters, but you still have a passport. You know what I mean? You're still obliged to something, to some rules that you were never asked. If you agree with them or not. And you're not given a choice. What good is voting if you get like two candidates and they both agree that something is legal or illegal, or it's like you are, if you want to be happy, you have to be that on their terms, agreeing to their rules. And the worst soul-crushing thing is you just have to give up your sovereignty, your agency, your freedom to just be without having to worry how to be, what in the current culture is allowed or not. If you look at all the differences in laws in different countries, partially enormous, and yet it works, or it seems to work, for their cultures. So they are not absolute rules of what is right or wrong. I mentioned it in a previous video. It's man-written laws. Man-written. It's not from the highest, no matter whatever anyone says about any book or something. It's all man-written. Those who survived all the indoctrination cycles with their souls intact, and they still have the feeling of self, of one's true self, his own soul. One is truly connected with that and knows his worth. He can't just rationalize himself away for the greater good, even though you see they sell us the idea of the greater good, right? Social contracts and stuff. But you're not even allowed to take a God-given natural plant for consumption in your own home without hurting anyone or even endangering anyone. People used those plants for as long as they know of them. People always tried everything. The issue with happiness that is conditioned from the beginning was not necessarily a completely bad idea, and it was in the frame of some rationality. But for thousands of years, that frame became ever smaller and smaller and smaller, and now facing the Great Reset, and you'll own nothing and be happy. Starting with the digital IDs in Europe. You don't tell me what makes me happy. I'll be happy without your BS and control. I'm not hurting anyone, and yet we're all considered as potential criminals just by existing. I get that there are people that sadly don't have everyone else's well-being at heart. Those who are hurt, damaged in some way, didn't have proper guidance or anything, and who might hurt others. And they should be under observation, not surveillance. Observation and help to be reintegrated, re-educated, whatever it takes. Not forcefully, but anyway, but those are a very tiny minority, actually. Speaking of the dark tetratypes, right? So why should the rest of us, 95% or so, should be treated the same for our own good? Really? For our own good? It's ridiculous. But once you start accepting their excuses for furthering certain agendas, once you buy into their BS, it's easier to adapt the next logical step every time. But that's not for everyone. That's not even for the majority if they open their eyes. Even with those that I also mentioned, intentional communities, you still have a leash from whatever country you're in. And there are laws, of course, even though the life itself is much better than the community and stuff, and not clock punching and all of that, but it's still a prison of certain rules and regulations. Sure, you can still do what you want if you're not caught. I'm not advocating anything of that. Disclaimer. Anyway, but you can't buy it as enjoy it if there's this cloud over your head of fear about it. Because if you're caught, who can tell anyone that he or she isn't allowed to be a psychonaut and explore their own psyche or other realms of reality, or just as one example, there's this cognitive dissonance again, right? Why people accept this prison and call it freedom. In the UN Charter, or what is it? Even in Magna Carta, right, Declaration of Human Rights and stuff, it said you have the right to choose where you're gonna work, kind of. But it doesn't say you have the freedom not to work, not to be a wage slave. For, let's say, 10% of us who are artists in their souls, that doesn't work. We would be creative all day long, every day. We can't. We may be stuck on some assembly line every day. It's death to the soul. Most of us, especially those who are seen through the facades and the joke of it all, school and didn't finish higher schools, those who've seen it early, they don't even have the luxury of choosing a job. They have to get what they get and be grateful for it. And are expected to be happy about it. Happy. Right? It's all conditional. That part is all conditional in a monetary system everywhere. But there's this other form of happiness that comes from within. About the realization of the wonder of life itself. Of simply never stopping being amazed how your spirit moves this so-called matter by thought or wish. This machinery, this biochemical, electrical thing. The fact that we see even those 0.005% of the light spectrum or something gives us sometimes even some fascinatingly beautiful experience. Just sitting in a park or on a shore somewhere, or, nature does it best, right? Some are drawn to human-made architecture, and sure, that can be also a feat. some of those structures, but when you know that they're made to inspire awe because of some power games, they're so big that makes you feel small. Think about that. Right? Come on. No one talks about how many people died building those things, trying to feed their families, building it for some other dudes who just happen to be in certain positions that acquire more monetary if a system works only for the small elite in expense of the majority, it just doesn't work. People still travel the world to see those and never ask themselves, never see that part of the story, or it's selective seeing, right? The mathematical improbability of any of us being alive, of any of us being able to be here, that the gravitational forces and the F forces are so balanced that it takes a millionth of plus or minus that it all falls apart atomically. They take that for granted. Never lose a thought about it. You can't tell me that all of that is a coincidence. And then ourselves as this beings roaming the earth, even the chance of ten square millions or something that just this sperm hit that egg and that our parents met and their parents met, it's like cosmic lottery for most of us that are at least healthy. Of course, those less fortunate, sadly. But still, something to live for. The question is it wishful thinking? Is it an illusion or a delusion? Is it coping mechanism, or is it true fulfillment? Blessed are the ignorant. Once you see some stuff, you can't unsee it. And it's not necessarily intrinsically good or bad, or it's both. That's why this living in the now, all we have is the now, is so compelling. And in a way, actually factual. In a way. Because time as such is also part of the Maya, right? The illusion. We have the Gregorian calendar, but nowadays mostly just used to extort everything from the work class. I mean, living to work, maybe 48 weeks in a year to enjoy 4. Where is the balance there? Imagine how much of time and energy you spend in work. How much you could have built in nature as a free person. You can build a house from natural materials in a few weeks. A beautiful one. Make terra start with permaculture, have your own garden or your own food, your own natural I mean, in a year you could set up a self-sustainable life and have everything you need in a year. So why do we have to work 45, 50 years maybe, and lose the best time of our life to provide our most rich or best lifestyle that you never get back. Anyone? For comfort, for that one peaceful hour in the evening when you can watch a movie, that's life. So many things we have to in these systems. It doesn't even give you time to think. If you don't take it and make some sacrifices to take the time to think, life could be very different. Very different, much simpler, much more fulfilled, much more connected to other human beings, to nature, to life itself, not to some machinery, not to wage slavery. There are those strong ones who are aware of all that and still smile and seem happy. Seem happy. That's the key word. Maybe they just can't imagine it differently. I mentioned it in another video how many I see that break and wake up to that system just doesn't work for them anymore. I'm happy to see it. It's painful, sure. But we're getting a momentum. I feel like in the next 5 to 10 years, things are gonna shift in so many ways, in so many styles. We have a chance to envision something better for all of us. And by us, I don't mean all of us who can imagine it better, who have that courage and that insight and skills and the will to some changes. Of course there'll be sacrifices. In any way, there are always sacrifices. But let's make them be worth it. In the long run. Not just for us, but also for our children and their children. How does that look like? It's different for everyone, right? But there are some core ideas, core values that we share. And we can make 10 different parallel worlds. And then grossly said, 10 different types of people can choose which world they want to live in. And then we'll see which version has more futures than others. Because the current ones, we see where that leads. So, one thing is working on oneself. The other thing is working on bettering the circumstances. Right? That's the juggle. But I believe in us. I believe we can make it better. Love you, brothers and sisters.